As we just heard from Pakistan's foreign minister, there are plans to combat the rise of Islamophobia through a joint effort from Turkey, Pakistan, and Malaysia. Back in September, leaders from the three countries came together on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly to discuss a new approach to tackling global challenges. Turkey, Pakistan, and Malaysia agreed that the best way to combat the negative perceptions of Muslims was by establishing a new English language TV channel. Long disappointed with current institutions and international organizations, leaders from the three countries have called on Muslims to look elsewhere, both when it came to addressing security challenges and countering the misperceptions of Islam. With ambitious goals to reach not only Muslims but the wider world, can this soft power push prove effective? And can cooperation between Turkey, Pakistan, and Malaysia, three diverse countries outside the traditional power centers of Islam, set an example of what's possible for the world's 1.8 billion Muslims? And joining me now is Arhan Shah Anuar, who is the charge d'affaires at the Embassy of Malaysia in Ankara, and Aydin Nurhan, who is a former Turkish ambassador. He was also a former permanent representative at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. So, Turkish, Malaysian, and Pakistani leaders got together on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly this year and discussed the current problems faced by the Muslims around the world. The three also came up with the idea to establish an international TV channel to tackle those problems. Mr. Anuar, I want to start with you. Could you tell us about the shared vision of these three countries, why they came up with such a decision?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Aisha. Why these three countries? Yes, it is well noted that these three countries, they already came from and arrived at a very interesting juncture. Turkey just finished its election and now in the new presidential system. And Pakistan also had an election, and Malaysia also. So all these things cross each other, and it is an interesting time for them to work on something. So these three leaders are very close. President Erdogan, Prime Minister Mahathir, and Prime Minister Imran Khan. So it is timely for these three countries to have a cooperation on something. And to start with, they agreed. They agreed to have these the meetings at the UN and come up with this proposal of a TV channel as a start.
So, Mr. Nurhan, what exactly you think prompted these three leaders to come up with such an idea? What's the problem?
The problem is we can speak of two parts to it. Number one, we cannot cooperate with each other. We cannot unite.
You're talking about?
About the media wars. There's a Islamophobia, we know. We cannot answer that. We cannot cooperate on that. Number two is a weak point for us, is that we take our news directly from Western sources without filtering them, put them on our TV news, on our newspapers. And why we came together is Pakistan, Malaysia, and Turkey are the most technologically, intellectually advanced countries of the Islamic world. Think of Pakistani scientists, intellectuals in the US, in Europe. From Malaysia we have. A lot of Turks within Turkey and throughout the world. We have so good human resource. And we had to bring them together. So, that's how we go.
Okay, so do you believe there's some kind of vacuum in leadership in the Islamic world? Because when we take a look at Malaysia, Pakistan, and Turkey, maybe it was the first time that Turkey and Malaysia stood up against India refers to the Kashmir issue. So do you believe there is some kind of a vacuum that needs to be filled?
I am of
Because
the view,
because you've served as a permanent representative at the Organization of Islamic Conference, so you would know about it.
yeah, I'm sure Mr. Aydin have more ideas to it. But as for me, I am of the view that it can't be described as a vacuum. That this initiative, firstly, that these three countries came out with this initiative. This initiative is, it is like a grouping of like-minded countries to overcome, to tackling all these issues. And the procedures, the initiative is rather complementary rather than an alternative to all things that we have. We have OIC, we have D8 and many other organizations, but this is just this is another method, another way to tackle these issues, an effort by these three countries. That's the way I see it.
So, Mr. Nurhan, what would you say about, I mean, when we take a look at the track records of the OIC as well as the Arab League, these two international organizations have usually failed to tackle with these problems. So is this an alternative?
OIC and the Arab League, although I served in the OIC 2 times, 4 years in Jeddah and 4 years in Afghanistan. Sad to say it, but I don't have much faith in the OIC anymore.
Why is that?
The leaders have to support the causes, and they are so divided. That's a very serious issue. But Pakistan, Malaysia, and Turkey are really serious countries. They have strong leaderships, and they can do the leading. So you need to succeed, these 3 countries.
Are you hopeful that these 3
Of course
countries
I am.
will...
Of course
What is the roadmap, you think?
Definitely. Now, most of all, what we can say is we are in media warfare. And Western media, especially some of them, some of them you know, the great names, are like war machines now. They are for the interests of their imperial causes. What President Erdogan says is we want to go for justice for the oppressed. If our TV network can take that as the ultimate goal, the American legitimacy, quoting, it was from end of World War II, September 2, 1945, about September 11, 2001. That's only 56 years. That was the age of American legitimacy. It's gone. American legitimacy is gone. So
But
we
do you
need more
think
legitimate fora.
But let's say we have this international TV channel set up, everything is working fine. But do you think, especially fighting Islamophobia, do you think you'll need the cooperation of the West? Because where Islamophobia is widespread the most is the Western part of the world.
Yes, correct. That's why this initiative of starting with a TV channel is so fundamental to our cause. That while we can decide on the content, we can decide on what there is an opportunity for these 3 countries to portray to the others, how or what or why the Muslims are doing, the beauty of Islam itself, why we are on how we address matters and situation. So this opportunity would eventually will eventually lead to something good. And I believe that my Prime Minister once said that social media is so important. It is a very important tool, like a knife. Yeah. It can be used to create good things, to carve good things, to make good things, good tools. And at the same time, it can also be used as a weapon that could harm others. So this is the way. Social media is the tool. TV channel is one of the things that they are looking at it to address this situation.
So I believe you're quite hopeful about this new formation
Yes.
and maybe this international TV channel, which will be established, I believe, in the short future. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure
Thank you.
having you here. Thank
It's
you.
been an honor to be here.